Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Ooh, so are we ready to go? I know I just logged on. Have we got a quorum?
Let me add it.
I'm probably showing up twice. I'm on my cell phone and my work computer, which has neither video nor audio. So,
Okay, sounds right. Other than the echo, I don't think that's me.
yeah, I turned my audio down.
Okay. Well, let's get started on the agenda then. Sorry, somebody else spoke up. Was that you, Krista?
Yes, we have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Okay, very good. Let's go ahead then and begin the meeting. First item is the approval of the minutes of August 9th. Anybody have any questions, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve those minutes. This is Adam.
All right, was that Adam?
Yep.
Good morning, Adam. Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. This is Sean from Tremont.
All right, thank you, Sean. All in favor of approval of the minutes of August 9th, please say aye.
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 Aye. Also, and then just to reiterate or confirm, I get confused sometimes in these meetings. Krista, we don't need a voice vote for that. Is that correct, or did you want to take one?
No, that's fine.
Very good. Okay, let's move on to item number 3. Consider approval of resolution UT 21-04, which would execute a service contract between ourselves, being Utopia, and Bozeman Fiber. Roger, if you want to describe for the board the item here, and then we'll move forward.
Yep. So this is a little bit outside of the box of what we usually bring to the board. So I'll provide some explanation here. For historical reasons, I think it's important we talk about Idaho Falls first, because this is a lot like what we do there. So originally with Idaho Falls, they approached us and said, hey, we have a fiber network here, but it's pretty limited. Oh, we got a little feedback there. And we'd like to expand that out, but we don't really know how to do this stuff. And they felt that there was a good opportunity for us to help them out. And we said, okay, yeah, we know what we're doing. We know how to do this stuff. We know how to do open access. We know how to do service providers. So we know how to do operations and systems and design and all the different things we do. And so we entered into a pretty informal agreement with them. It was a little bit better than this, but it largely captured the idea of we'll do stuff for you and then we'll charge you for that stuff. And they ended up owning that network, and we provide various roles for them. It's changed over time. We said, hey, you know, we should probably charge you for time that we spend with engineering and construction or materials management. You know, and so we kind of adjusted pricing and things there. And it's been a good source of revenue for us. As we show you our take rate and subscriber numbers, you know, we're well over 2,000 subscribers on that system. And we charge somewhere between $10 and $15 a month for the pieces of what we do related to that network. So, you know, it's a decent amount of revenue. And we haven't had to hire anybody. And again, that relationship is, we do the things we can do here with our existing team remotely, and the local stuff, Idaho Falls takes care of in Idaho. So repair work and technicians and locating and you know, things related to the ownership like insurance and utilities and all that stuff. They take care of that stuff, and we do things like network monitoring, design, some, you know, the things we don't need to have boots on the ground for in Idaho. So that's been fairly informal how we've done that, but it's been a very good relationship both for Idaho Falls and for us. So now switching gears over to Bozeman Fiber. Bozeman Fiber has been operating for many years as an open access network in Bozeman, Montana. It's just kind of a middle mile network though. So they've got a lot of anchor institutions. One of the stakeholders is the school district and the city and several others that created Bozeman Fiber and are on their board. And they have a couple hundred customers on that, but they're not like residential customers. These are schools and larger institutions. Again, it's a middle mile network, but it is open access and have several providers that operate across that. And they were looking to, go big basically and say, let's build this thing out across the whole city. And we know some stuff here, but we don't know how to do all the magic of open access at a larger scale. We like the design and the processes of UTOPIA. And so we took an approach and said, well, what if we did it like we did in Idaho Falls for Bozeman Fiber? And we basically go through the list of roles and say, hey, this is the stuff we don't want to do. You guys in Bozeman, you'll do that. You'll hire, the technicians and all the resources for the local management and operations of the system. And then we'll do the pieces related to what we can do remotely with our team here in Utah, and at very good economy of scale, meaning probably not hiring anybody specific to the effort. Except that at some scale, we probably have to hire somebody. Again, you can imagine if right now, even with the Idaho Falls, of bringing in over $20,000 a month and not having anybody that we've actually hired related to that, it's very good for us financially and mostly because of that economy of scale. We expect to do the same thing in Bozeman where, yes, we're taking on more work, but even if we did have to hire one or two people, we'd still be way ahead. And we don't really anticipate hiring anybody specific to that project. And as it grows, we expect both Bozeman Fiber and Idaho Falls each to become probably $100,000 or more a month of revenue for UTOPIA. And a lot of these partnerships we've been doing have been at UIA because UIA is the financing and the owner and the all-in, turnkey of these things, and then it contracts with UTOPIA for the operations of things. These are really nice from UTOPIA's perspective because they basically is UTOPIA operating and creating itself new revenue streams, which in turn, allow us a little more flexibility in paying for debt on the original UTOPIA bonds, relieving some of that burden of the city. So that's the intention of this, is let's help out and grow and take advantage of what we do well. We're not issuing any debt for this. We're not taking on the risk. We're not guaranteeing the success of the project. We're simply, as we get customers in that network, or as they get customers in that network, we will get revenues from each of those customers. And we also have overhead in the design and construction and materials of the project to get revenue from that on the front side of this as the network is built. And it's, again, it's been a really good relationship for Idaho Falls, and if we can do that again in Bozeman, we actually expect Bozeman to go much faster because they have gotten approval for a $65 million bond, which is about a $58 million construction project to build this. It's in partnership with the county, so it's the financing is actually under Gallatin County as the conduit for the financing, with Bozeman Fiber being the one that will own it and operate it, but contracting with UTOPIA for services related to that. Again, the guarantees, none of the guarantees are coming from us, other than that we say we'll provide a service and we're entitled to revenue for the services we provide. And so there's a lot of detail in the contract, a lot more than we ever had with Idaho Falls. Idaho Falls was pretty informal, kind of figuring it out as we went. And this is actually a really nice structure we have with this Bozeman Fiber contract to delineate the specific roles we're taking on and what's expected of those. But yeah, we're actually pretty excited about it. It seems like there's really not much downside other than a little bit of extra work that we'd be putting on our teams. And as we need to, we may need to staff to that as we hit certain thresholds, but we're expecting to stay pretty similar and that we're already at. Just in context, I mean, generally, we brought this up in our UIA meeting. If you just look at it conceptually, when I came back as executive director about 5.5 years ago, we had about 14,000 subscribers and about 50 employees. We're now at 85 employees, but like the largest gain in employees has been in insourcing functions that we were paying contractors for. So like our utility locating team is 11 employees, I think. But that was something we were paying for anyways. We actually saved money by insourcing that. And so the actual employee growth related to growing our customer base and network footprint and all of that is, it's closer to maybe 20 employees. And technicians and things like that. But we've gone from 14,000 to 43,000 plus subscribers in that time. And so we've really been lean on the economy of scale of growing our customers and revenues without growing the people and overhead at the organization. And these types of partnerships with Idaho Falls, Bozeman, we look at that as another way to leverage that economy of scale, bring in revenues. It's actually kind of all the good and none of the bad. We're not even issuing new debt for these projects. There's no debt or risk from our perspective. We'd love to do another 10 of these, I guess is my point, but we don't have another 10 lined up. I think the more likely growth that we'll see that's a little more aggressive is on the UIA side as it does additional city partnerships here in Utah. We've got a lot more cities lined up interested in having conversations related to fiber to the home. And then UIA under that structure is in a position to pay UTOPIA for services on those projects, and that also provides additional debt relief that we can provide at UTOPIA. We still have a lot of exercises to do with our finance committee to figure out mechanisms for moving funds appropriately and good ways between UTOPIA and UIA to realize more benefit on the debt relief. But the good thing is that everything is trending really well in that direction, and that the money availability is becoming better over time. And we'll get into the finance. I don't want to steal thunder on finance, but we certainly show trends of revenue that put us in that good position. So related to Bozeman Fiber, that kind of captures at a high level. Here's everything UTOPIA does, and this goes into their bucket, and this goes into our bucket, and this goes into their bucket, and largely what captures that is functions local to Bozeman Fiber. They're responsible for those functions. We'll not have any payroll or staff located in Bozeman. That'll be theirs. But the things that can be done with our existing resources here in Utah, we'll be doing those functions.
Okay, very good. So I'm trying to think of downsides to this, Roger. So let's just say Bozeman Fiber, for example, folded. What's the negative side to us? We have to scale down the employees, or you're saying we don't even have to do that because we're absorbing that in the bandwidth, so to speak, that our employee group already has?
Yeah, it would be a minimal. It's like, well, it would stink because we lose out on revenues, and maybe we hired, a knock tech or customer service person or something like that related to the growth we saw in Bozeman. But so many other aspects of UTOPIA and UIA are growing as well that are more of an influence there, as we probably would just say, all that means is we just wouldn't need to hire a person for a little bit longer, and we'd retain that resource because of the growth we're doing anyways. But if it became necessary, we said, hey, now we actually have more than we need, we'd do a reduction in force on that position related to it. But again, we're not even planning to hire a single person to take this on, and it would only be after it grew significantly where we might hit some sort of threshold where we say, okay, we're doing too much, we're taking on a lot of extra work, we might need to add a person here or there.
Okay.
So a little bit of a blip in revenue, but not really any other thing. I mean, that would only be just lost opportunity for revenue, but not a negative hit to us as an organization.
So is there
All right, very good. All right, so go ahead. Questions from the board.
Is there a point where maybe it becomes too burdensome or cumbersome that we want to exit? Do we have that ability within the contract besides just a default?
Yeah, there is language in the contract that allows the parties to mutually agree without cause, and then otherwise it would need to be a for-cause departure if it was just a single party that was leaving.
And there's no penalty or liability aspect for us exiting in
Not for
5
us.
years?
No, language guaranteeing that Bozeman would be required to compensate us for, services rendered and all of that kind of stuff, standard, kind of language, but no sort of obligation on our side, no.
Okay. Well, as far as, kind of alluding to what Wayne was mentioning, what's your biggest concern? We heard a lot of positives. What's your biggest concern, and how is that being mitigated, Roger and Josh?
My biggest concern is that it is work on our team, and it's like if we've got them tied up working on Bozeman, like right now as we're planning out resources and load, I'm like I think we're in great shape. If some other opportunity walked in that was another $100 million build in a project, could that consume resources that we have tied up in some other partnership with Bozeman? That's a good problem to have. But I don't see any of those materializing. I think there's ways to deal with that. It would probably be hiring additional engineering and construction management folks at Utopia to keep up if really demand took off and we had multiple $50 to $100 million projects suddenly walk in all at the same time as we were ramping things in Bozeman. From a revenue perspective, we're great. We're covering the costs. We have justification for hiring people to put in those roles, but to be honest, people in this industry right now are very scarce. And so it would be a challenge to try to take on Bozeman as well as some other big opportunity. But again, none of those are obviously apparent right now. And the team looking at this right now, we say, yeah, we can take this on with our existing resources, and we're confident in that without being a problem.
Jason.
Yeah, Roger. Hey, I was just looking at this contract, and I noticed that the revenue splits are all based upon a percentage. And is there anywhere in the contract that says what a minimum amount that Bozeman will be charging for the services are? Is there any chance they wouldn't charge enough to the users to make this worth our while in the long run? Like if we look 30 years down the road?
So that is something, Jason, that I've been looking at to just ensure that Utopia would be protected there. That protection comes in the Bozeman Fiber's product catalog, which Bozeman doesn't have the authority under the contract to make changes to without sign-off from Utopia. And so what we'll be able to do is come in with those initial prices, and then if there were going to be any changes that would come in down the road, Utopia would have the opportunity to offer input and would be required to sign off on any of those to make sure that we don't get undercut by some dropping price.
Thank you.
Good question. Okay, anybody else? Other board members?
Yeah, Roger, has this contract been reviewed and approved by the Bozeman board yet, or are they waiting for action from this board first?
I can speak to that. The Bozeman board is expected to see the contract at the end of this week. We've been working through just a couple of fine-tuning details on the language in there. The draft that you got in your packet is the latest, most up-to-date, and it's the one that I think has everything covered in there. The director of Bozeman Fiber has that in hand and is prepared to take it to his board. I can't remember if they have a regularly scheduled meeting or if he's going to be calling a special meeting for that to happen, but we don't expect any obstacles with approval on their side.
So you said this is a draft, but you're looking for approval today, right? And it would be the final if there were not any other changes proposed by Bozeman.
think as long as there are no substantive, I mean, if there's like numbers or, grammar or something like that, but so long as there's no substantive difference, we'd expect approval today to hold, and that be the version that they approve.
Yeah, the standard language that we use in our resolutions with the other agreements that we've approved is the board authorizing execution subject to any, cleanup, typos, finalization of the agreements.
We'd normally probably have them approve and then we'd come back for counter approval, but just the timing of this board meeting, we're like, well, they're about to approve this thing, our meeting is right before that, and so I just felt like it'd be appropriate to bring it up here instead of scheduling a special meeting in a couple of weeks. We didn't have a lot on the agenda anyway, so it felt like a great time to bring it up.
Okay, thanks.
Good question, Mayor. Thank you. Okay, anybody else on the board? Other questions? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Oh,
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Go ahead, Blair.
Was that a jinx?
Yeah, go ahead, Blair.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve resolution UT 21-04 to execute a service contract between Bozeman Fiber and Utopia, pending approval of the Bozeman board as well.
Thank you, Mayor. So that's Mayor Camp from Murray making the motion, and I'll accept Mr. Jason's second there, if
That
he's
works.
willing. All right, very good. Krista?
Jeff Lamson,
Aye.
Adam Kelly,
Aye.
Matt Dahl,
Aye.
Sean Warnke,
Aye.
Thomas Pearson,
Aye.
Mayor Camp,
Aye.
Robin Meekum,
Aye.
Jason Stamp,
Aye.
Todd Christensen,
Aye.
Wayne Kyle.
Aye.
That's
Did you get Jeff Lamson?
Okay, very good. Thank you for that, Krista. We'll move on to our next item, which is the financial report for Utopia. And I'll give the time to Laurie, although I saw Roger. Roger, you just acting as scribe here for Laurie, or did you want to say something first?
Oh, I'm just navigating documents here.
Okay,
So-
very good. Okay, Laurie.
Okay, thank you. The first thing I have in the packet is, Roger, thank you. The Utopia budget to actual for the period ending September 30. We're 25% of the way through the fiscal year. As far as revenues go, we are right on target. 25% of revenues have been collected. All of the departments are pretty close to 25%. We have 22% in administration, 27% for the NOC, outside plant and engineering, 29%. The plant repairs and maintenance, we're at about 52% of that. So some of that, we go through and review that. If any of that can be charged back to contractors, we bill that. So that's a little bit high. On Blue Stakes locating, 25%. Field services, 22%. Next page, Roger. Operations management, 22%, 19% network engineering, marketing, 26%, customer service, 21%, and then non-departmental expenses, 25%. So total expenses, right where they should be at 25%. Everything is working out exactly as we projected and budgeted. So that's good news. Do you have any questions on the budget to actual before we move to the revenue graphs?
Questions from the board? I'll give you one, Laurie, just for the fun of it.
Sure.
So in non-departmental, we're right on And yet when you look in the numbers individually, there's a pretty wide extreme. Like we're actually over for insurance, which I assume is due to two things. One, we'd be paying our premiums early in the year. I'm not sure why we're actually over, but the other part of that question would be on our capital side, we haven't hardly spent anything. Same thing with software and computer expense. So do we use those two items as kind of a hedge against overages in the other area? Even more deep to that, are we actually going to buy trucks, or what's the situation looking like there in non-departmental?
Yeah, there's very little, on the insurance, we actually, the premiums came in higher than what we had budgeted. So we budgeted 190, we're at 215. Most of that is additional vehicles that we purchased over the years, over the prior year. We are planning to purchase additional vehicles, so we probably will spend that full $500,000. As you know, with the executive director's permission, we can move budget allocations from one department to the other. So in places where we do have capacity, if we need that, we can transfer budget. But the only one that really jumped out at me as needing to go back and take a look at would be the plant repairs and maintenance in outside plant engineering and construction. Need to make sure what that's about, why it's happening, and if we can go back and recover those costs.
All right, very good. Okay, everybody, I gave sort of a second to think about any other questions. Anything before Laurie moves on? All right, Laurie, go ahead.
Okay. The recurring revenue graph continues to impress. We are at about $2.8 million in monthly revenue. We'll probably reach a benchmark of $3 million in monthly revenue by February or early spring of 2022. The UIA revenue makes up $2.2 million of that. The UTOPIA revenue, $671,000. The next graph is the 12-month moving average of the increase in month-over-month recurring revenue. It's settling in at about $40,000 per month. That's been pretty consistent since mid-2020. And it hovered around 20,000 for a while, and then, as you know, really took off, especially with the with COVID. So it's still doing well. There's a little blip. I think some of that is new areas that have opened where customers have gone in and paid the upfront price to purchase the fiber rather than to lease it. It was also a period, there were quite a few footprints released during that time. But $40,000 average increase in recurring revenue is pretty strong. And then the last graph I have, I know this is a UTOPIA board meeting, but I know that you have interest in how UIA is performing. This graph is UIA's revenue, monthly revenue of $2.2 million. Our monthly bond obligations at this point total to $1.6 million. Not all of those are cash flowing for UIA yet. A lot of them are still in the cap-I period. In fact, all of those that have the markers on the line are still in the cap-I period. But the difference between the revenue of $2.2 million, the debt obligation of $1.6 million is adequate to cover the operating expenses of UIA. And with the franchise fee pledge that we haven't had to call upon, we are still at 1.5 times coverage on our debt service, which is what allows us to keep our great BBB minus bond rating.
We're hoping that ticks up at some point. We have enough history on it, but BBB isn't reflective of being a bad credit. It's more that it doesn't fit a box. And the rating agencies struggle with that a little bit. But certainly having a good revenue to debt ratio is helpful.
Yeah, everything's contextual, right?
Yes. And one thing I will say, just adding to what Roger said regarding Bozeman earlier, all of this is a huge benefit to Utopia. The additional revenue coming in from Idaho Falls and the additional revenue that we expect to see from Bozeman is going to make the Utopia revenue line grow and add a bit to that total revenue between entities.
Yeah, it's tough because Utopia has not issued any new debt for a long time, right? It's all been at UIA. So a lot of people expected Utopia's revenues to die off, and then that would become an increasing problem for Utopia as an organization. But some of these partnerships we've been able to find have been opportunities not just to flatten that, but actually grow the revenues at Utopia. So we can at least cover all of our operating expenses, maybe even create a little bit more debt relief capacity there, even though the lion's share of the revenue growth is happening at UIA. And again, that's a whole other opportunity of how we get funds between the agencies and offset costs and all of that. You know, there's definitely some work to be done there to help Utopia with its debt burden that the cities are paying on. But the good thing is that the revenue growth is putting us in a really good position to figure that all out. So we're excited with good news. You know, last year it was good to give some payment back to the cities. Obviously, we're expecting that to continue and to grow.
Good.
That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. If nothing from the board, thank you very much, Laurie. We'll move on to the next item, which is Roger's operations report.
Okay, on the network updates, we like to just kind of talk about our subscribers and the builds. You've seen this is our total subscriber growth chart here, going up about, we're about 43,000 subscribers today. It's pretty impressive. Just, you know, it was not back many years when we're down, you know, 14,000 subscribers. So that continues strong. We see it across the board. In these charts, as you see, like, where is this happening? You know, we have these newer ones coming in here. Idaho Falls, again, that partnership we mentioned, I've kind of highlighted that in red to stand out here so you can see how that has come into play. Those aren't the same dollars per customer, but they're also at no cost. So we're not spending money, but those are Utopia subscribers in the sense that Utopia is realizing the revenue from those. And so we actually expect Idaho Falls to start accelerating in growth. We've only done a couple of footprints in that city, and the latest indication is that they're interested in doing a more aggressive growth. I think Bozeman will be much more aggressive entirely because they are doing a $65 million bond to build out the whole thing, whereas Idaho Falls was just kind of incremental footprint by footprint. Each footprint being about 1,000 to 2,000 addresses. So we'll see those start coming onto these charts, which go into things. A lot of the growth, if you look at the subscribers here, are in cities where we're either actively building out or fairly recently have completed. And so, again, our big winners on subscriber growth, you've got Clearfield just kicking off, and so that's come up pretty strong. Idaho Falls is going pretty strong because of the new build there. And then you can see West Valley is coming on. That, you know, someday West Valley City is going to give these other cities a run for the money just because it is such a big city. We've got a lot of people coming on and signing up, and we're still not done with that build. We have several more footprints. It's a big city. So we have, when we look at the availability by city, this is the number of addresses where you can get service. And so this is more a reflection of the construction of the project. You see West Valley City is now the largest in terms of how many locations can sign up for service. And so we expect those subscriber rates to be growing for some time, whereas the build out of Layton has been completed, and the build out of Orem, being this one here, is nearly completed. We have just a little bit left in Orem before we completed there. Other notable completions are we finished Midvale recently. Murray is in kind of completion phases with a couple of footprints being wrapped up there, but not yet completed. So they'll see a lot of addresses coming on and subscribers. And then those partner cities of Clearfield, Pleasant Grove, and Syracuse. Construction is completing in Clearfield and ramping up in Syracuse and Pleasant Grove. So lots of opportunity for new signups and new revenue growth. Financially, it's been great for UIA, and it's like, hey, this is great. We're able to cover costs of these bonds, cover some costs and revenues to offset things at Utopia. But we don't expect that to slow down anytime soon. The future is looking really bright, and we expect to keep pushing those numbers, month-over-month growth, to be strong. Be hitting 50,000 subscribers here before long. So with this trend, I don't know, we need to come up with some sort of celebration, I think. As far as take rates, we see take rates. We look at those from a residential perspective. They jump around a little bit. We've had some address data kind of giving us a little bit of difficulty here. You see some jumps in those take rates. The actual subscribers are going up very well, and we've changed systems back here in that it's a little difficult because you have like MDU properties where maybe we have a single active connection, but there may be 300 properties behind that. Looks like a terrible take rate, but actually the 300 units are benefiting from the service we're providing, and a lot of things like that count against us. And when the county updates records, sometimes we see thousands of new addresses show up because of things that have been parceled. And then we've had some of them duplicate data, and then they retract that, and it goes back down. And so we have to do a lot of data cleanup here, and some of that hit us especially hard back at the beginning of the year. But the reality is the number of subscribers is kind of tuned in to reliable information from our systems change, and it looks great. Again, Layton is number one on number of subscribers here, but they're going to see a challenge in the short term here from Orem and probably West Valley at some point, just because the size of the city. But the take rates are very strong, and we see that growing everywhere. And I think a lot of people just figure because we're building and expanding so much, we're seeing subscribers come on as a result. And I think it's important to note, some of these cities, even Linden here, they were the first city that was considered substantially built out, and yet, over the last few years, they've continued to add customers and increase their take rate. And across the board, these cities, even those cities that have been built out and haven't seen the big bumps because of completed network, we're continuing to see higher and higher take rates across the board. So it's all looking good. In our previous meeting, there was a lot of questions like, what are the things we worried about? What is going to come in and harm us and cause these rates to go down? And really, fiber has proven to be the best long-term infrastructure to support broadband needs for people, and those broadband needs continue to grow across the board. And so, we certainly saw a bump in demand as a result of COVID when people migrated to home and remote work and remote education, but largely we're back to the new normal in Utah with students going to school, and we're continuing to see strong growth in subscribers. So it never did really go back to pre-COVID levels. We're continuing to maintain very aggressive customer growth across the board, and that's residential, business, and we're still seeing a lot of interest from other cities potentially partnering with us. So it's all good news, I guess, is the main point. Only other thing I want to provide an update on, and mostly it's a not update, as we don't really want to go into detail in a public meeting about legal proceedings. But I want to make sure everybody's aware, information's been shared about filing against American Fork, where really the objective of Utopia has been to simply be treated as other providers in our ability to use right-of-way. We had that, and this is what's a little unique to American Fork, is that we had a franchise agreement. We're operating, made investment and partnerships with schools and businesses and others in the city, and kind of had the rug pulled out from underneath us with that being canceled and kind of trying to get us out of the city. And so normally I don't know that we would pursue it as aggressively as we have as just an independent entity, but it's the partnerships we have with others. It's the partnerships with the schools the partnerships with the service providers. They have customers and relationships, and we're simply trying to support them and their needs. And so, you know, we're simply asking, it's a pretty easy ask, to be honest, is, you know, this is all just a result of the American Fork not being willing to allow us to operate like any other provider in the city. So our position in the full, you know, claim of damages is potential to go after, and all of that is detailed in the legal complaint. We did put a statement together that we've sent out that puts out our position. We did see a letter go out from American Fork to kind of, you know, take some shots and dig at us, and we did send a kind of a, here are the facts, actually. You know, a lot of the points they made we felt were exactly opposite to the reality of what was going on, of non-compromising and non-responsiveness attitude from American Fork. And so feel free to reference the materials that have been sent out there just for your knowledge and understanding what's going on. We do not see this as 11 cities against, you know, going against American Fork City. That's them trying to position it that way. This is, you know, Utopia as an entity, just trying to protect the interests of the organization as well as our partners. And those are good partners out there, like the state and the county and the school system and our service providers, and the significant investment we've made in that city when things were a good relationship. It's, you know, just trying to protect those interests and being, you know, we're asking to be treated fairly is all, and according to protections put out there by federal law. If anything comes up that you would like us to address, if you have questions, if you have people asking, please refer that to me and Josh, our legal or general counsel here at Utopia. We don't really want to be out there making statements or have any inconsistency on the messaging. So please, again, we don't want anyone to be caught unaware of this from a city staff or elected official position. But again, this isn't a fight between cities like they're trying to make kind of position this. This is, you know, this is kind of our deal that we're pursuing there. And so you shouldn't feel like it jeopardizes your relationships with American Fork or anyone else out there. You know, we want to support you. At the same time, we don't want to get too out there in front of this in the media or in the public. We want to take it pretty officially through legal processes and channels. Any questions on that? Again, I'm like, we don't want to talk about it, but then, you know, we don't want people to be frustrated with lack of communication either. So trying to strike a balance there.
Maybe I can add a comment. Just appreciate all of you as the board members being able to pass that message on to your various elected officials, basically saying, yeah, like Roger said, if we have questions, please ask them of Roger through Utopia and not outside of any means that would jeopardize any kind of a legal position. Sean, it looks like you might have had a comment or a question.
Did you say
Did
Sean?
not?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Sean. All right, well, then if we don't have any other questions or business, we're at the item to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll move.
All right, thank you. I think I heard Adam first. We'll take that. And I think we had a second there as well. I can't remember, or I didn't recognize who it was. All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
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 All right.
All right, thank you very much. Great to see you all. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Okay, see you. Thanks.